Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are so excited to chat with you today. If you are joining in the live broadcast, we would love for you to write in the comments. Hello, tell us where you're from. If you have any questions regarding sleep, which is what we're talking about today, drop them down into the comments. If you're watching the replay, we do monitor the comments, so feel free to post your questions in there and we will absolutely get back to you. Thank you again for being with us. Today we're talking all about sleep. Alena, I know you've mentioned to me before that this is something you struggle with, and you're not alone. I was looking around for some statistics, and 60% of Canadians are sleeping fewer than 7 hours on a weekday, which is a work day, and 49% are sleeping fewer than 7 hours, even on the weekend. So we're not getting enough sleep, and a lot of people are not getting the quality of sleep that they need. And I know for sure that the quality of people's sleep has decreased during the pandemic. But we're here today to share with you how you can improve your sleep and why this is such an urgent priority for you. And before I get into the content, or we get into the content, I want to introduce you to my co-host and co-creator of our new employee development program, W Squared Work and Wellness Amplified. So Alena Spitterskaya. Alena is a leadership coach, speaker, and facilitator. She holds a degree from McGill University, and she is almost done the process of becoming a certified coach. We're very excited about that for her. She's also the creator of the successful Empowered to Lead program. Alena draws from her 10 plus years of experience in the corporate world to help organizations become better places to work by really looking at managers and helping to turn managers into leaders and tapping into employee strengths to help develop a culture of passion and engagement. And if you've been watching any of these videos, we like to share fun facts with each other because we think personal lives are very much integrated into work lives. And so today's fun fact about Alena is that she grew up in Siberia.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So thank you so much, Lydia. And thank you everyone who is joining us live or watching a replay. It's really nice to have you here. So Lydia, now I get to introduce you. Lydia DeFrancesco is a wellness expert, speaker, and author who has worked in the wellness industry for over 10 years. In addition to having an MBA from the University of Ottawa, she's currently in the process to become a certified workplace health and performance practitioner. Lydia is a weekly radio host of a wellness segment and is a regular TV guest expert. Lydia has an energy and passion for helping people see that there are simple ways to make healthy living your lifestyle. And this is what today is all about. Honestly, and one fun fact about Lydia is that she makes beautiful things from yarn. She knits, she crochets, and she dabbles in macrame and embroidery. And I used to do macrame when I was a child. It's such a beautiful and calming experience.
It's so fun. Absolutely. Very calming.
Yeah, so ever since we planned this LinkedIn Live, I was really excited about it because full disclosure, sleep is something that, as you mentioned, I shared that with you. I have been struggling with for a while, and incidentally, this is also something that I know, I have no doubt that this is something that I really, really need to show up at my best self, because I can see a huge difference between, when I had a great night of sleep and I wake up energized and I'm ready to go, or when I didn't. And this is just like I wake up a different person. It's not the person I want to be very honest. So today I'm ready to kind of take the back seat, become your student, and really learn from you as much as possible, because I know you work with your clients and you have so much knowledge, so many strategies that I'm really excited about it to hear today. And before we get into all the nitty-gritty and specific strategies, I would love to know, maybe you can share some general information about sleep and what are some of the common issues of poor sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to say that this is part of our W Squared program where I have a whole hour devoted on this topic. So I will be able to give some highlights, but certainly won't be able to dive into all the details that I normally share with our corporate clients. But I wanted to give a bit of an understanding of people, so people really get a sense of a little bit more about how the body works, right? Like we're not often too aware of what happens with our bodies, but our bodies have a 24-hour biological clock, which is called the circadian rhythm. And this influences our bodily functions and our overall state of health. It's really, really important. So, some of the functions that are influenced are metabolic rate, your regulation of hormones, not just the sex hormones, but hormones that make you feel full or hungry. These are very important things. Things like blood pressure, body temperature, and of course, your sleep-wake cycle. So getting regular sleep in duration, quality, and time consistency will really help with your body's circadian rhythm, which helps to maintain your general health. Right? So typically, or ideally, not always typical for some people, when you first wake up in the morning, cortisol is at its peak. So this is what gives us energy and motivation to start our day. So we want the cortisol higher in the morning. It starts to go down throughout the day. And then in the evening, again, is where we would see, again, in typical cases or ideal case, cortisol is at the lowest. And then we have melatonin releasing around 9 p.m. And your digestion is also starting to slow down at that point. So that is the ideal cycle. And what happens is a lot of times people's cortisol maybe spikes in the morning, but then it's high like all day, right? We're in a heightened level of stress like we talked about. So we're going to get into a little bit how we can mitigate that. The other thing that's really important to know about sleep is that it's meant to follow the natural light-darkness cycle, in the sense that your body wants to be awake when it's light out, and it wants to sleep when it's dark out. What has happened now with our modern society and the invention of light bulbs and light is that we are artificially keeping ourselves awake longer because our body thinks it's still daytime.
Oh my God. I personally experienced such a big difference in my ability to wake up in the summertime because there's light outside. I wake up just naturally, oftentimes. And it's very different story when it's February. I have to have 3 alarm clocks just in case, because it's not the same experience, let me tell you.
Absolutely. So it's the same for me, for sure. And this is why I got a sunrise alarm clock, which is actually one of the strategies that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on. So there's definitely some things that we can do to help with dealing with that light and work with the light darkness cycle that I'm talking about here. So I want to share very briefly some common causes of poor sleep. So like I talked about, being stressed. So when your nervous system is activated and still on, that is going to hinder you a lot of times from either falling asleep. So this is what we would often refer to as like the hamster wheel that won't stop turning in our heads, right? Like our left brain is still analyzing and processing information. It also can be a cause of why you're waking up in the middle of the night. You're not going to get into a deeper state of sleep if you have an active nervous system. So we need to make sure we're doing things to lower our stress levels before we go to bed. There's also organ and metabolic stress that you might be having. So if you're eating certain things that are causing your liver to be more backed up and overworking, then you might have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. Same with digestion and food timing. If you're eating late at night, that is stimulating your digestion, which is the opposite of what your body normally would do, which would be slowing digestion down, which then it means it's forced to work overtime. It's not like you can just eat and your body's like, oh, sorry, we're closed. We'll digest that tomorrow. It's like, oh, shoot, you came in late. Now I have to deal with you, right? So that can definitely be a factor. And of course, just generally staying up too late. And that's often coupled with being on electronics late at night. So being on your phone, scrolling, and especially if you're not you're using that nighttime mode with the orange light. If you're getting a lot of blue light from your phone and from either your computer or your TV, again, like I talked about, that's the artificial light. It signals through the eyes, right? When we're getting that light to our brain, oh, it's daytime, we should stay awake. And so you don't actually feel tired. So now, Alena, I want to ask you something, because I know a lot of your work focuses on employee productivity. One of the modules in our W Squared program is actually called Working Smarter Using Neuroscience, which I love. So what is the impact of poor sleep on productivity?
Oh yeah, so one of the biggest complaints I hear from people is that they're overwhelmed, right? So they're really busy and that they have so much to do. And the typical response when someone has a lot to do and they're overwhelmed is to throw more hours at a problem. So just basically working more. And usually it happens at the expense of rest and sleep. That's because that's something that we kind of seem like, okay, that's what I have control over. The
Mhm.
problem is that this approach creates a very vicious cycle, because lack of sleep has a major impact on nearly every aspect of productivity, right? So because our brain is extremely power hungry, it's energy hungry. So when our batteries are not fully recharged, everything slows down. Like, think of it as like we're entering the energy saving mode. So everything kind of gets, the colors get a little duller, some things get a little slower. So that's pretty much what happens. And I read this fascinating statistics that it says that reducing your nighttime sleep by as little as 90 minutes in just one night, reduces your daytime alertness by over 30%. This is
Wow.
insane to me, and I feel it. I mean, I feel it when you look at the numbers. It's
Yeah,
really shocking.
yeah,
So what happens is less sleep leads to less energy, right? So less alertness in the daytime. That leads to less productivity. So it takes you longer to do the same things. Now
uh-huh.
you become even more overwhelmed. You work even longer, sleep even less, and so it becomes this really, really vicious cycle.
Wow.
And feeling drowsy and trying to stay awake takes so much mental energy, making it so much more difficult to stay focused on long tasks or any task that requires your concentration and full attention. So it's not surprising that when we are sleep deprived, we make more mistakes because we may miss some details. We take longer to react. We can't stay focused for the longer time, and our memory is impaired as well. We just don't remember or recall things as fast as when we are refreshed. And in some professions, that may mean you're missing an important phone call or deadline. Maybe you're not responding quickly enough to a conversation, to your emails. But some professions, actually, if you think about it, I'm thinking doctors, first responders, truck drivers, when your reaction time slows down, that can actually mean a difference between life and death. So this, all those little things, it can actually create a big negative impact. And of course, we all know that it's just so much harder to stay engaged, enthusiastic, and energized when you're tired.
Oh
When
yeah.
we're tired, we're much more irritable, less patient, and it can lead to unproductive conversations, snapping at others. Certainly guilty of that, and even lead to conflicts at work and at home that we could have easily avoided. And since, like you mentioned, a lot of my work is focusing on leadership, I always say that investment in your good night's sleep and maybe nighttime ritual, morning rituals, small but effective ones, is crucial for managers to really fulfill their role and show up at their best. And it's also a powerful way of leading by example.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And I am the same way. Like for sure, I wouldn't say I'm the most patient person in the best of times. And certainly, although I try and write that in my affirmation journal, but certainly if I haven't had a lot of sleep, I mean, never mind. Like there's
Yeah.
just no hope that I have patience for you. And it's not a good, yeah,
We need the status update,
yeah,
function
yeah. But
on,
at
on
least
Fiverr.
I am self-aware and I can generally at least warn people if I need to. But you know what? Honestly, I really think a lot of people are walking around thinking that how they function is normal. So people are walking around, like you're saying with that stat, at 30% of less mental alertness, but they don't even realize that they're like 70% that they're walking around with. They think that's their 100%. And it's not, but they don't know, right? Because this has just been typically for a lot of people, they've had poor sleep for such a long time, they don't even realize. You know?
Mhm.
And another thing that people often don't realize that they're doing is something called revenge bedtime procrastination. So this is a fairly new term, but it's not a new phenomenon. I did some research and I found out that the term bedtime procrastination first was introduced in 2014 in a paper in the journal Frontiers in Psychology. And then the term revenge, so the word revenge part was added. It became popular only in June of 2020 through a viral tweet by a journalist named Daphne K. Lee. And so she described it as something that happens when people who don't have much control over their daytime life refuse to sleep early to regain some sense of freedom during the late nights. And this definitely resonated with a lot of people. So have you heard about this?
Oh my God, you're just describing me literally. And I'm not surprised that it became viral in 2020, because that's where I think, with lack of social interactions, with for me, it was not even, it was a lack of variability and fun and something, because I've noticed that it happened to me so often, and I was so curious to learn more about this, because I would find myself scrolling through social media for hours at a time before going to bed, even though I almost had to physically keep my eyes open. I was so tired. I knew I needed to go to sleep. My brain says, go to sleep, please, now, or you will wake up like a monster tomorrow. And
Yeah.
then I'm scrolling. And I know I'm not enjoying it. I'm not even getting anything out of it. It's just like this weird, just scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. And
Yeah.
it's so frustrating, because then you wake up and then you feel guilty around this. You feel, oh my God, I knew, so it's like shame, guilt. You have to get into this optimal state again. And the problem is it repeats again. And then it becomes a habit. And then you're just doing it without even, thinking about it. So it's really a big problem, I think.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's a real thing for sure. I've talked to a lot of people about it. And what I've found, and it's kind of in the description in terms of what it is, but it's basically often happens when people don't feel like they have enough time for themselves in their day. So their
Mhm.
day, they're up early, maybe they have kids or they have someone to take care of, or they just need to get up and get to work, or like you said, the cycle, so they're tired, so they're getting up late. They're
Mhm.
rushing to work, whether it's at home or at the office. They're working all day. They are slammed, literally have no time or aren't making any time for themselves, maybe not even eating lunch properly, like without working. Then they get home, there's home things to do. And then all of a sudden, it's like 9:30, 10:30, and they literally have not had a chance kind of to breathe, so to speak, or to really do something that's fulfilling for them in a personal sense. And so I
Mhm.
think what for people who struggle with this, I think it's really identifying these sorts of things. And I think number one is coming to the realization that you're doing this like you did. You were like, oh, I'm scrolling and I'm not even enjoying it. What's happening? I think then they also need to, figure out a way to create, even if it's just pockets, short little pockets of time for themselves throughout the day. So whether that's in the morning and you have a nice, even if it's a 5 minute drinking tea while you're just looking outside, staring at the birds chirping, right? Some little ritual for yourself. Maybe you're actually trying to take a lunch, again, even if it's short, without working at your desk. Maybe if it's doing something fun for yourself, or doing something like exercise. If a lot of people see that as a chore, but obviously I encourage people to see it as like a thing they get to do, or something in the early evening. But basically, really try and evaluate where can you fit in some time for yourself, and also what will fill you up. So what fills your
Mhm.
I think that is extremely important, because I can just spout out all these ideas of what you could or should.
Yeah.
If that's not resonating with you, if that's not helping you, then don't do it. If you really love music and just listening to music for 5 or 10 minutes just without doing anything, if that's going to lift you up, then that's great. Or if you want to do a phone call with a friend and that's going to help, then that's cool too. There's unlimited options. But I really encourage you to think about almost sort of like the what brings you joy, what fulfills you, what is going to be meaningful to you in a way that you can um, increase your energy levels. And it's not about, I really want to make it clear that this isn't about getting those house chores done, right?
Mhm.
That is not fulfilling time. That counts as like the work time. And so, again, even if we have little pockets of this time for ourselves, I think it can make a difference at the end, like the nighttime side of things.
Yeah.
You're not feeling like I just need some time for me and it's 11,
Mhm.
you know?
That's a good point. That's a good point. And it's really like you said, it's really about what makes you feel fulfilled, and that can mean so many different things. Maybe it's calling a friend, or maybe it's listening to the music, or even watching. Sometimes maybe it's watching your favorite TV show. If it really fulfills you, that's perfectly fine. So kind of becoming self-aware in that sense. But I also would like to add one thing that really helped me, is that when we talked about goal settings, we talked about how we can work with our environment to make the default option, the option that we want as a default. And so
Mhm.
did help me a lot is blocking. I use Freedom app and I blocked social media. And then I end like it blocks at 9 p.m. Sometimes it's actually a problem because I want to share something with someone that I can't after 9 p.m. But that's the price to pay.
Yeah.
But then it automatically blocks. I don't have to do anything.
Yes.
And then I have to, and also I came up with something to replace this with, because otherwise then I'm just sitting in my bed. But so that now I have my Kindle where I am reading something that's nonfiction, because I tried with fiction and then I ended up staying until 2 a.m. because it was interesting. So I said,
Okay.
not that. So now I'm reading nonfiction, and then honestly, it's like one chapter at a maximum, and it actually makes me sleepy.
Yes.
So it's how do you add things that fulfill you during the day, but also how do you effortlessly eliminate that bedtime procrastination?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a journey and a process for sure. But I think, hopefully you're watching this and listening, and this is bringing something new to your awareness. And then once you kind of can realize that this exists, you're able to sort of figure out how to deal with it. So, I want to get into talking about some strategies for falling asleep.
Absolutely.
So we've got 10 minutes left. So I have a lot of things to say. If this is piquing your interest and you do want to, book us in for some sessions, we're certainly able to chat with you about what that looks like. But there's a few key things that can help you with falling asleep. So one of them, easy one, avoid caffeine after 12 p.m. Unless you're the kind of person, there are people genetically built that caffeine does nothing to them in terms of keeps them awake. But if you're that person. If you're not that person, sorry, don't drink caffeine after 12. So that's an easy one. Another easy one to do that is very, very effective. I highly recommend this to everybody. Dim your house lights. So remember how I talked about the sleep, light, darkness cycle? So again, we are artificially keeping ourselves awake at night. So what we can do is change that, and we can make our house lights darker. We can make it darker in our home when it's darker outside. Therefore, we're then signaling to our body, oh, okay, it's nighttime. The body will start to produce melatonin, which will then make us feel sleepy. So dimming your house lights. If you don't have dimmer switches, it's very easy to change them. I have learned how to do this. I've changed light switches. I've actually changed light fixtures, which I'm super proud of.
You can book Lydia for that too, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's easy and inexpensive to switch out light switches. So recommend for your living room area, bedroom, and bathroom specifically. Those are key. Another thing, like we just talked about, electronics. Please put your phones away. Mine goes away at 8:30. Alena's social media goes off at 9. I would say, in my opinion, because I want you in bed around 10:30. So by 9, phone goes away. TV, it's not ideal. But I have to admit, I do watch TV before bed. That is the one advice that I don't follow. But it doesn't really matter because I fall asleep in front of the TV anyway, so I'm okay for that. But getting those electronics, and the reason why is because they are so mentally stimulating. It's not like where Alena's talking about in terms of the Kindle, where she's reading a book, and it is a little bit mentally stimulating, but it's not the same as those constant dopamine hits that we get when we're scrolling, when we get the notifications, the colors, all that sort of stuff really makes our brain start working overtime. And again, that's going to be a thing that's going to keep you awake longer, make it harder for you to fall asleep. So use the tools, get that app. What was it called? Freedom app?
Yes, Freedom app, yeah.
Also, the Apple products.
There's a lot of different ones, but
Yeah, there's so many. The Apple products, I know Apple phone, like I have it. It has like do not disturb function, so that's what I use. Keep it simple. The other things that are key would be winding down before bed. So this is basically the opposite of the revenge bedtime procrastination, where you're actually stopping doing a lot of things before bed. I find for me, I generally follow all the principles that I share, but the one when I don't is when I get into trouble and when I notice that it makes a difference. So try to have a good routine before bed. So whether that means, brushing your teeth, washing your face, reading a book, having a cup of chamomile tea or something like that.
Mhm.
Or it could be watching TV if you find that that helps you and relaxes you. You basically want to try and get your body out of the stressed mode, the fight or flight mode, and into a rest and reset. So whatever it takes, it could be doing a meditation or doing some journaling or something like that.
Mhm. And there's so many gems in here, honestly, and I find that definitely I see a huge difference when I don't drink coffee after 12. And this is something that I've discovered, and I realize just how much impact it makes it has on me. And also I found that the journaling you mentioned, I really like that because I have a piece of paper next to my bed always, or a journal, because sometimes I get ideas when I go to bed and my mind goes crazy and I have some ideas and they keep me up at night because I don't want to forget them. So having that and just
Mhm.
writing it down, and sometimes on the post-it notes just lets me just release it and then move on to this. But I also find that some nights I have no problem falling asleep,
Mhm.
but then I wake up every hour, and it's so frustrating because one thing we win, then you lose, and so when I wake up I still feel tired because the quality of sleep is just
Yes.
not the same. So do you have anything for that, for
Of course.
staying?
Yes, absolutely. One other comment, just as a general comment regarding sleep before I forget, is please do not sleep with your phone in your bedroom. If you use it as an alarm, there are very many options for inexpensive alarm clocks out there, $20 or less. You can get an alarm clock. If you feel the needs to keep your phone on for like emergency phone calls, just leave it outside the bedroom door. Okay, for staying asleep, yes, absolutely some key things. You want to either sleep naked or in as little of clothes as possible. So if naked is not comfortable for you, I realize it's not for some people, that's fine. As minimal amount of clothing as possible. You want to have your body, when you're not in a lot of clothes, your body reduces its temperature, which induces a deeper sleep. The
Mhm.
room you sleep in is very important. So you want it to be dark and quiet. So if you need to invest in some new blinds or different kinds of blinds, think about what you could do, or at the very least, wear some kind of an eye mask.
Let's do that.
Another key one, this is a really important one, especially I found since the pandemic, some people's drinking habits have increased. If you're going to drink alcohol, do it at least 3 hours before bed, because it is very, very disruptive to your sleep. Um, because when you drink alcohol, your body's like, oh, this is a toxin. We need to get rid of it right away. And then it will kick in and it will start all the processes to get rid of that out of your body. And what you'll find is you'll wake up mid morning, maybe like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's not really a good thing. So, and honestly, that's a pretty easy shift to make. Um,
Mhm.
Same for eating. You want to try not to eat too late at nighttime. I mentioned that was one of the common causes of poor sleep. Um, and avoiding high inflammatory foods. So things like sugar, processed foods, really just good healthy eating, focusing on proteins, fats, fruits, vegetables. The other thing I do want to mention is some supplements that could be helpful. So, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, but high quality fish oil, magnesium bisglycinate are two things that can actually help improve your sleep quality. I know when I take them, I notice a difference than when I don't. When I
Mhm.
take them, because that happens, I definitely aren't sleeping as well.
And maybe it would be good for you to later on add the comment under the LinkedIn Live with those two things,
Sure.
like in terms of supplements, because I didn't really catch them fully.
Yeah.
So just in case. And of alcohol, completely agree. I actually now I started noticing that a while back, and now when I have maybe parties or I'm meeting with friends, and I know I'm going to be drinking a little bit, I already know that my sleep is not going to be good. and, and I just know just from experience, I still drink my sleepy tea before bed, and I take a few supplements as well. But so I try to mitigate it as much as possible, but I already know that I'm reducing my chances of having a good night's sleep. So usually on Saturday, Sunday, I don't have my alarm for that specific reason, because I need to somehow compensate. Now I'm also wondering, because sometimes I notice that even when I have a good night's sleep and hours seems to be okay, like my Fitbit is saying that it was a good sleep, but I'm waking up still tired, and I'm like, where is that energy? If you can do a little brief, maybe a few tips.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned, be in bed 10:30. I don't have time to get into all the science behind it, but I can just tell you that the way your body works in terms of the healing and the rejuvenating process, that is an ideal time to be going to bed.
And 10:30.
Drinking water, honestly, it sounds so simple, but so many people are dehydrated and they're going through their day dehydrated. And that actually also slows down your brain processing and your ability to think and all that kind of stuff. So cheers. I keep my water in here. I just fill it a number of times a day. The other thing that is really helpful is getting sunlight in the morning. So what happens is when you wake up and you get sunlight, your body cells, the melatonin production goes down. We reset your clock to start the day. We're waking up your cells. We're essentially telling your body, right? Like the opposite of the dimming of your lights. We're basically now telling your body like, okay, it's the morning. We can wake up now. So that can be really effective. And like I mentioned, the sunrise alarm clock. So what this does, super quick description. It starts off with a very bright light 30 minutes before you want to wake up, and then it goes brighter and brighter and brighter until it's the brightest at the time that you want to wake up. And I got it specifically for exactly what you talked about, because I sleep in a dark room, because that's what is best. In the wintertime, it's still dark at 6 a.m. when I want to wake up. And so I just was having such a hard time getting out of bed, and it makes it so much easier to have this kind of alarm clock. So there's many different brands and kinds that exist out there. So do some research, find the one that works for you. But that can definitely be something that helps as well.
It was a game changer for me. That's what I actually got it in the winter because of that reason, and I just find it's such a much more gentle way to wake up because I was able to wake up before the alarm went off. It's just kind of gradually taking you out of the sleep. So I highly recommend a sunrise alarm clock. Yes, there's so many on Amazon.
Yeah, the way I describe it to people, it's waking up with that feeling of like, oh, I just woke up. Like on the weekend, like you said, when you don't set the alarm, you get that natural wake up feel, as opposed to like the friggin' heart attack.
Jolted.
Like, oh my gosh. And it jolts you out of bed or you hit snooze.
And you're like, oh my God.
Oh my God, no heart attack alarm clocks, please. Basic, if anything. You know what? Unfortunately, we're out of time. There's a lot of different strategies. I zipped through this. If you want to watch the replay, if you joined in live and you still want to kind of rewind and rewatch, feel free to do that. The other thing I just want to mention, as always, don't feel like you have to now implement all of these at once.
Yes.
Okay? There's a lot I just threw at you. Pick a few, one or two, find the easy ones, start with those, and then add in a few more of the other strategies. It's totally okay. Remember, life is a journey. We don't need to get to our, destination in a day, right? You can take time with this and really instill these good habits into your daily life. So
and sometimes it's even being more aware of your sleep habits and your patterns and some other things, like as simple as sometimes it's like limiting coffee by 12. It's not something that requires a lot of action, but it can make a huge difference. And just if you implement one, and I'm sure you will see a big difference. And I truly enjoyed this conversation. It was so valuable. So many things. I was taking notes, so I'm going to start implementing more tips into my daily life for sure.
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And if you have any questions about sleep or anything you want to add to the conversation,
or topics you want us to cover, we're always open to that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, everyone, have a great day. Bye.
Have a beautiful day. Bye, everyone.